We're going to talk about the Spanish missions of Texas. So missions were buildings that Spain sent people over to build and to keep going. And they wanted to expand their control from Mexico into Texas. And they thought that by taking over the land that they had there and spreading Christianity, that they were doing good work. So missions were places that were paid for by the Spanish government, and their goal was to spread Christianity to the Native Americans so that they would join the Spanish Empire. Spain wanted to have power in other parts of the country, so they thought by sending priests and soldiers over to Texas to get the Native Americans to become Christians like them, that they would then have their power in the country, and then therefore Spain would have more power. Okay, let me show you before we go back to that a couple of pictures. So here are the missions of San Antonio. There were missions all over Texas, but there was a good concentration in San Antonio. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is the most famous one. Do you know what it's called? The Alamo. So a mission, part of it was a church because they would send Catholic priests over to Texas from Spain, and that would be their job to run the mission. So every day at a mission, they had a mass, and a mass is a church service that they have. Kind of like if you go to church on Sunday morning, it would be like that, but it's every single day. And they would sing hymns and say prayers and learn about their religion. And then during the day, they had a self-sustaining community there. So they farmed, they made their own clothing, they cooked, and they made other things. And they would also work to build on to the mission. So who lived in a mission? The people of the mission were, first, there were two missionaries that were priests who conducted all religious matters. And these priests are Catholic priests, which are kind of like preachers, just in a Christian church, but they are Catholic, so they're called priests. And then they brought along with them Spanish soldiers, okay? Spanish soldiers were there to help protect the mission from the other Native American tribes. Remember back when we learned about Native American tribes, we learned that some of them were quite violent and they would attack other groups. Well, they would also attack the missions. So that's why they had soldiers there to help defend them. And they also trained some of the Native Americans to get them on their side to help protect the mission as well. And the Native Americans got to go and live at the mission. So if they converted to Christianity and decided they wanted to live there, they could live there for free, but they would need to work either in the workshops or in the farm or on the ranch or as a soldier. And then they would get shelter, medical attention, and an education if they lived there. So it's a pretty good deal for the Native Americans who wouldn't live there. We're going to skip over that one. Okay, so they did have farms there. Like I said, it was a self-sustaining community, meaning they didn't have to go to other places to borrow things or to buy things because they could create it all in their own mission. So these mission communities grew their own crops. They had like vegetables and they had fruit, and then they created this way of watering. Irrigation means like watering your plants. They created an Aquias, I think is probably how you say that, that brought water diverted from the river to water their plants. And they also had ranches where they had livestock. Of course, the livestock was used for meat for eating and for milk for drinking. And they had lots of land there for that. And they had the first cowboys were Spanish or then Mexican, also cowboys, and they were called vaqueros. So they were the first cowboys in Texas, and they tended to the livestock. So missions are located throughout Texas. Like today, we're going to talk about the San Antonio missions, but all the way throughout Texas along the rivers. So why do you think that they would be built along the rivers? Well, I'm glad you asked. They were built along the rivers for many reasons, okay? So if you think about it, back then there were not stores, there was not there wasn't a faucet in your house that would just have water come to it. So you needed to settle somewhere near water so that you'd have water to live, to drink, to give water to your animals, to to water your plants, right? Also, because they had so many missions right near each other, they could use boats to travel and bring supplies back and forth through the missions. So that it would be the reason that that they were located along the rivers. So many of the missions actually began in East Texas, but then they moved them to Central Texas, so they were by each other. So here are some of the San Antonio missions. Okay, in the next video, we're going to get into some of the missions specifically and information about them.